Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marika McCabe. I am a scientific engagement manager with Protocols.io, and part of my role is working with uh, researchers, Gates Foundation grantees, on use of Protocols.io platform. Today, we'll be presenting a special webinar guide for Gates Foundation grantees on the power of sharing detailed methods, credit, uh, preservation, and reproducibility. Just a few housekeeping notes. We will be recording the webinar, as you heard the recording start. You'll receive a link to this recording as well as these slides either later this week or early next week, and can review those later if you need to. You can turn on closed captioning, and I'll show you how to do that in the next slide, along with translations. And we will have Q&A at the end, but please feel free to add questions in either the Q&A or chat during the webinar, and really any questions that you have, you can add at any point. There's also a webinar feedback survey at the end, which really gives us the opportunity to understand what benefits you got from this webinar and what questions or suggestions you may have for future webinars. And I encourage you to check out some of our other webinars. The past webinars are all recorded and available on the site, and you can also sign up for upcoming webinars that are open to the general public at protocols.io/webinars. If you need more one-on-one assistance, you can request a demo with us at protocols.io/help/demo. If you benefit from captions, you can turn on captions by clicking this Show Captions button, and then you'll be prompted to select your language, and you can set the caption language here. The Zoom will then do a relatively good job of translating everything I say into your caption language. A quick overview of our agenda today. We're going to go through the benefits and best practices of using Protocols IO and putting your protocols on the platform, how to get your methods onto Protocols IO, and then how to privately and publicly share the protocols, and then time for Q&A. So before we get started, I am going to launch a check-in poll just to see for everyone who's attending, what's your familiarity with Protocols IO? And then if you do have private protocols on the site, the second question that just is multiple choice about how you got those protocols onto the platform. So I'll give everyone a little time to answer that. Okay, so I'll end the poll and share results. Hopefully you can see the results. So most of you have viewed protocols from others. There's not as many who have published, and it seems like everyone who does have a private protocol on the site started from scratch. So I'll be covering all of the different ways that you can get your protocol onto the site. And given that a lot of you have kind of just viewed protocols, if there's anything that I am not able to get to for the sake of time about creating a protocol, I really encourage you to attend our tips and tricks webinar where we get into some of those details. Okay. So for anyone who's familiar with Protocols IO, you'll know that part of why we exist is because sufficient information for repeating experiments is often lacking. If you've attended any of our past webinars, you've probably seen this slide already, but it's really important to make sure people know that a huge reproducibility project showed that people are not able to replicate experiments based on methods, and there's really this weakness in how we're documenting and communicating science, and it's really important that we think about how we're writing our protocols down and how we're openly sharing our protocols. And it's not only about others, but it's also about you. Your biggest collaborator is yourself, as this really wonderful tweet says, and the you of the past probably doesn't have the ability to communicate with you of the present or future. This me from 2 months ago never responds to emails. You may do an experiment and in a few months look back and say, what did I do on this day? Or did I, incubate for 10 minutes or 15 since there's a range? And you're not going to be able to answer that question unless you've written it down. It takes a little time, but if you document your methods clearly as you're doing them, it saves you time later and it helps others to understand exactly what you did and makes it really easy to share those methods later once you're ready. And methods do have an impact. There is this study from 2014 in Nature where they compiled the list of the most highly cited papers. This is provided by Clarivate Data that owns the Web of Science and includes 98 million papers dating back to 1900. And this list was most recently updated in April of last year. And you'll see at the top the three most cited papers are all techniques, each with over 200,000 citations. And really, overall, this list is dominated by laboratory techniques. So methods do have an impact, and researchers use and cite methods a lot. In the open science movement, there's been a lot of focus on open access publications and open and fair data and code, but data sharing and even sometimes code sharing really needs method sharing. If I give you a plate of chocolate chip cookies and I ask you to reproduce my recipe or to tell me details and analyze the cookies, you wouldn't be able to tell me how much sugar they contain, if they're friendly for someone who has a nut allergy, or any of those details unless I provide that to you with my methods. And you wouldn't be able to necessarily replicate my exact recipe. Because even if I give you some idea of how I made the cookies, unless I've fully shared that method, it's impossible to replicate it. So data can only be interpreted in the context of how it was produced, much like cookies only being interpreted in the context of how they were baked. And there's a lot of policy recommendations based on this understanding that we need open method sharing for open data sharing, including PROMAP and UNESCO's recommendation on open science. Open protocol sharing also fits into modular publishing, where you can publish discrete research outputs and get credit for your work. You also not only are getting credit for the part that you contributed to the overall manuscript, but also you're able to further explain and go into a lot more detail about these different portions of the paper that come together in one paper. In a public manuscript, you might be limited by text limits or how much of the data or methodology you can include, but by having these modular pieces that all come and fit together, you're able to better expand and explain what went into that manuscript and what went into the research behind that manuscript. So in this case, this is a really nice example from Nature Communications 2 years ago, where expression constructs were deposited at AdGene, methods are on Protocols.io, and the molecular structure is on the PDB protein data bank. And those all come together to provide people with a better understanding and access to the information relevant to the research performed for that manuscript. Oops, skipped ahead. There we go. So that brings us to why you're all here today and why I'm here and have my job as a scientific engagement manager. Protocols.io is built to make it easy to share your method details before, during, and after publication. And along with that, our methods are fair. They're findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. If you publish a method on Protocols.io, it's indexed by Google Scholar. It will receive a CC BY license, meaning that other people are able to access and utilize it. We have open API for multiple integrations, including ELNs and data storage locations, and it's reusable. I'll talk a bit later about versioning, forking, and running, but our dynamic protocols are built in a way that people can move beyond just a single piece of paper with a protocol, but actually build on, adapt, and use the protocols. Protocols on Protocols.io are being cited more and more by published manuscripts. So this graph shows over time the number of manuscripts referencing Protocols.io. And you can see that this is increasing the cumulative citations of Protocols.io. And we're owned by and part of Springer Nature, but we are publisher agnostic. So authors in different publishers, over 185 publishers from 1,000 plus unique journals, do use Protocols.io and cite Protocols.io. And of course, I can tell you all sorts of things, but our researchers also can speak for the impact of publishing protocols. It enhances collaboration. For some, it helps with career development. Others received recognition from publishing their protocols. And some also have pointed out that it makes them more competitive when it comes to grants because they are differentiated in the fact that they are working with others and really collaborating. But a good protocol is something that we have to kind of talk about. What makes a good protocol? So I have a really nice KitchenAid that's a stand mixer for baking cakes, but just because I have that tool, it doesn't mean that I'm going to produce incredible cakes like these. And just because we have the tool of Protocols IO doesn't necessarily mean that you are able to produce a really amazing protocol that others can find and others can reproduce really easily. There's a lot that we need to think about when we're putting these protocols together. So we have this little drawing activity, which if you want to follow along, you can. Um, but um, when steps aren't clear, people might go through this drawing activity where you're told to grab a pen and paper, fold the paper hamburger hot dog style and unfold, draw a circle, draw a pentagon, draw lines away from the pentagon, connect the lines with hexagons, and color in the pentagons. I went through this activity with some undergrad and grad students recently, and no one drew the same thing. And for the sake of time, I won't have you all draw, but when you look at these slides later, you're welcome to and see if you can figure out what I'm drawing, although I'll spoil it in a little bit. So, what would make that protocol better? What are the best practices of writing protocols? One is to digitize your methods, which is easy to do with Protocols IO. Another is to make the protocol so that it is modular and self-contained. This means that you don't want your protocol to require others to have access to other papers, other publications. You should include references for any protocols or papers that you pulled from, but people shouldn't need to go and find another publication, especially at one that's behind a paywall, to be able to complete the protocol, or the protocol shouldn't be hidden in the method section or supplemental information of an existing publication. You want to make sure that the methodology is contextualized with a brief abstract and that there's as much detail as possible. Sometimes images and videos go a really long way. There's certain words that just don't exist in all languages or don't exist even in, the English language for me. And a video or an image makes it a lot easier for people to understand what you mean. You want to also add any materials like catalog numbers because that can make a big difference. I also want to encourage that if you're putting terms like use water, that you're really clear about what kind of water, distilled water, milky water. If it's distilled water, are you purchasing it from somewhere? What's the catalog number? What company are you purchasing it from? Is it tap water? That can all make a really big difference for a lot of experiments. Keep your steps brief and in chronological order. You want to really limit jargon and active voice, add keywords, add tips and tricks like notes and guidelines, credit all authors appropriately. If you're working with any samples that require ethics statements, make sure to include ethics statements and then get feedback. That's the really important thing for a lot of us. Sometimes you write a protocol and there's certain things that are just muscle memory that you don't think would need to be included. And if you're able to get feedback from someone else, they might point out, hey, this protocol would really benefit from you detailing what to do between these two steps or expanding on this term because it's a term that maybe you know, but I don't know. So I really encourage you to follow all of these best practices when you're writing your protocols. And what does that look like for our drawing activity? This isn't even the full protocol anymore, because when you go into details, it will become a lot longer. But now we're adding in the title, How to Draw a Soccer Ball. Probably you didn't guess that that's what we were doing. An abstract explaining exactly what the protocol is going through. The materials are listed. Instead of saying fold it hamburger and hot dog style, which is jargon, that's terminology that's used only in certain parts of the world, vertically and horizontally are better for people to be able to follow. details about exact measurements and details with notes, and then a picture so that people who are reading the protocol can visualize exactly what you're explaining. So I've covered in the first part of this the benefits and best practices for writing a protocol and putting your protocols on our site. And now we're going to really get into actually using protocols.io as a Gates grantee, getting your methods on protocols.io, and then private and public sharing of protocols.io. There's four main ways that you can get your methods on protocols.io. One of them is to fork an existing protocol. So this is to find someone else's protocol and make your own variant of it. And I'll discuss the terminology of that in the next slide. Our we enter protocols service, starting from scratch or importing from existing text or files. And I'll get into all of these in more detail. So some quick terminology on protocols.io. You have the ability to version, fork, or copy a protocol. A version is linked to previous versions. It builds upon the protocol. Only the owner of the original protocol can publish a new version, but anyone can create a new version. If you create a new version of a protocol that you do not own, you will need to request that the owner of the protocol merges the two versions together before it can be published. This can be used to rectify an error in a step if you put information that should be fixed, or to provide extra information about the optimization of a specific part. So if someone is asking a lot of questions as you're getting feedback about the protocol, you might realize a new version is really helpful to have so that people can understand exactly what you're saying. And as I mentioned, the versions sit on top of each other. So if you access version 3, you will be able to go back and see version 2 or version 1. And we also have a compare tool allowing you to see the difference between those versions. And if you've sent someone a link to version 1, when they open that link, they'll be told, hey, a new version exists, and they'll be directed to open that new version if they want to. A fork is linked to the original protocol, but it is its own protocol in itself. Anyone can create a fork and anyone can publish a fork. This is done when you're modifying a protocol for your own use. So this is basically a variant of an existing protocol. Perhaps you're using different sample types, different species, different strains, different equipment, or someone has created a protocol that's a really baseline foundation and you're building off of it. You'll see that the protocol that you forked from is linked and listed there. And so the person that provided the foundation for your protocol is still getting acknowledged and is still getting linking, but you're now the one who owns and is able to modify and publish that protocol. And then a copy is really used if you're just trying to utilize a protocol as a template. There is no link that exists, so only protocol owners and co-admins can create a copy. This would be used if you have a lot of protocols with the same abstract, same authors, same affiliations, or other information that remains the same, but information like steps differs. Then you might want to copy the protocol and use it as a template, just so you're not filling in that kind of metadata or specific data over and over again. So just to help with a quick metaphor, a version is if I make a chocolate cake recipe and I want to update the recipe to have a different listing for how much of the sugar to put in because I realized that the previous version had too much sugar, I would make a new version and I'd add into the abstract just a single sentence saying, version 2 includes a corrected amount for how much sugar to use. A fork is if I'm taking my chocolate cake recipe or someone else's chocolate cake recipe and adapting that to be a vanilla cake recipe. So I'm modifying it for a different type. And again, I'd add a little abstract sentence explaining how it's modified versus the previous. And then a copy is if I'm cooking something entirely different, but I'm in the same kitchen with the same oven and the same chefs. So I'm building off of the existing equipment. I'm keeping some things the same, but it's a totally different recipe. I'm making a roast chicken now. So those are our important terminology. And one way that you can start getting protocols onto protocols.io is finding others' protocols and forking those and building off of them for your own research. Another way is to import existing techniques. So you can come in and click import a protocol and then use our Protocolify AI importer to upload a protocol that's in any existing format or many existing formats. This is limited to 10 pages at a time. So if you do have a really long protocol, you probably are better using our our protocol import service. But if you have a protocol of less than 10 pages, you just drag and drop to upload it and click convert. This also works with images of handwritten protocols like this one, where you can take a picture and put that JPEG in, and it will convert it to that step-by-step format. Once you've done that conversion, make sure to view the protocol and go through and make sure that everything actually was imported correctly. All the steps are where they're supposed to be, and then check all the tabs here, which I'll go through when we do the live demo as well. But every so often, the importer might put information in the warning section that should have been in the step section or vice versa. As I mentioned, that's limited to 10 pages. So if you have a long protocol or if you really prefer that we import the protocol for you, you can use our protocol import service. This is the link to go to. You'll then upload the protocol, add any relevant notes for our import staff, enter the promo code GATES WES3A, and so that will give you a free protocol entry provided by the Gates Foundation. If you don't enter that promotion code, we will contact you and ask you if if your research is related to any funder, to make sure that you're not paying for this service when it's provided to you as a grantee. And then you'll click continue to start the import process. We'll take your protocol, we'll review it, make sure that it is something that should be imported and put onto the Protocols IO site, ask you any questions if we have them, and then you'll receive a email once your protocol is ready for review. And at that point, you can either review it and approve it or ask us to make additional changes. You'll gain ownership of the protocol. It is completely private, so we're not publishing the protocol for you. And once you gain ownership of the protocol, it's yours to further edit, add pictures to, add images to, make any changes, and then either share privately or publicly. And then you can share your private protocols with other researchers or workspaces. Again, I'll show this in the live demo, but I just want to emphasize that once you've made your protocol, we really encourage you to publish it when you're ready, but you can share it in ways that are really specific and controlled so that it's only viewable, only editable, and publishable by specific people or by specific workspaces. And you can do this in the protocol editor by clicking share, in the protocol viewer by clicking the three dots here, or in the file manager. And I'll show how to do that in the live demo again. And then just one other note, as a added benefit of the premium protocols IO provided to Gates grantees, you do have access to private protocol translation. So when your protocol is published, it will automatically be translated into English and 5 other languages. But if you want to share your private protocol with a collaborator or a reviewer or someone in your lab or research group who might benefit from that protocol being in a different language, you can come into that file manager, click Manage Translations on your specific protocol, select the protocol language, and select the language that you wish to translate this into. This is generated by AI and empowered by AI, so there will be a little disclaimer that notes that it is a translated version, and that viewers should check to make sure that there's no inaccuracies, but it does a really quite good job. And then for public protocols, as I mentioned, they're all translated into English, German, Spanish, French, Japanese, and Chinese. And so this really helps with global sharing, and I encourage you, as you're making your protocols, to think about whether some of your collaborators would benefit from translation. And then when you're ready to publicly share your protocols, you can publish on Protocols.io. Whether you're publishing your protocol on Protocols.io as a standalone method, so this is just authors who want open and transparent sharing of their lab methods or linked to your research papers, we have those options for you. And with linking to research papers, you can either directly cite a protocol DOI, which I'll show all of these in the demo. You can go through one of our method and protocol journal partnerships, some of which provide peer review of protocols. And we are part of Springer Nature. We do have direct integrations currently with Nature Cell Biology and Nature Cancer. So if you're submitting to either of those, you're able to link your protocols to those papers, and those also could be peer reviewed. All right, so now we're going to get into the second half of this webinar, which is the live demo and getonprotocols.io. I'll do a quick overview of the Gates umbrella workspace. We'll talk about importing and drafting protocols, publishing protocols, and then some of the features of a published protocol that you might want to look out for. So let me stop share for 1 second while I close my PowerPoint since it's not going on its own and pull up the Gates umbrella workspace. We'll go ahead and start sharing again. All right, so you should all see my screen now, and I'm on my second screen, so I'll be looking over here. This is the Gates umbrella workspace, which you should all be part of. And this is where you can have your protocols stored in the various team folders. And as we get into some of the details, I'm going to reference how there's a few differences depending on whether you're working on a protocol in the Gates umbrella workspace or if you're working on a protocol in your own workspace. So just keep those in mind. So in the Gates umbrella workspace, when you want to create a protocol, you can click New. And then from here, you can click Protocol to create a protocol, or import a protocol, which utilizes our AI import service that I walked through. When you select a new protocol or the import, you'll be asked which workspace and which folder. So just make sure you're in that Gates umbrella workspace and then select the appropriate folder for the protocol that you're working on. I am going to work in my private folder at the moment just because I am not a Gates grantee and I do not want you all to get access to protocols and confused about why I've put these into your workspace. If you do put any protocol into your private folder, so that will be a folder like this with that raccoon icon and your name, you are the only person that can see those protocols even though they're in the workspace. So I really encourage you to put them into shared folders so that other researchers can view them and can provide feedback on them. Go ahead and click continue here. So once you get into the, oh, sorry, I'm going to take a step back. Just one more note about the Umbrella workspace. So this is the file manager. This is where all of the files are stored. If you come to the workspace profile, this profile shows you kind of an overview of the workspace. So you can see the about information, the different interest keywords, and then the protocols that are listed here are published protocols. So all of the protocols that are here are already published and have a DOI and can be cited in your research because they are already published. And then this impact tab also allows you to look at how the protocols that have been published with the workspace are being cited in the literature. So right now, one of the protocols published in the workspace was cited in this PLOS journal, and you can view that article there. So the workspace folder is what you'll work out of when you are looking at the different private and public protocols. This has all of your files in it, and the workspace profile will only show the public protocols. All right. So if you are creating a protocol from scratch, when you open it, you'll be met with a blank template that says Start Protocols here. and you can click that new button and create either a new step or new section. A step allows you to input the details of the method and in a step-by-step format. So you'll want to start with step 1 and continue to add steps either by clicking new step here or on the left-hand side, insert step here. Um, the sectioning allows you to have a table of contents. So we can put section 1. I've accidentally hit save on my computer. There we go. Section 1 here. And then perhaps you insert another section. This would be section 2 and section 3. And now I have a table of contents over here where I can navigate. And when someone is viewing the protocol, they'll see that table of contents where they can navigate as well. So that helps you to enhance your protocol to make it really easy for people to follow by breaking each part into different sections. For each step, if you're writing a lot of information in one step, this can sometimes become really confusing. It's better to keep steps as short as possible. And so the way to make that easier is to break steps down into sub-steps. So you could have step 1, and then if step 1 has a lot of different parts to it, you can click insert sub-step and that will add a sub-step below. And you can continue to insert sub-steps until you've really clarified everything that you need to clarify there. The other thing to mention is that if you are opening a new protocol, but you've already typed your protocol somewhere else and you're just starting from scratch, but you don't want to use the AI importer, the protocol import service, but you do have the steps typed in an email or a Word document or somewhere, you can click insert steps from text and paste in your protocol. So I'll just go ahead and copy and paste what I said I would talk about here. And then in this case, I would say each line is a step because I don't have numbered steps. Click preview and it's broken each of those into a step. I can then come here and say, okay, importing and drafting protocols, enhancing protocols is a sub-step, adding metadata is a sub-step, and then add that to the protocol. And then if you need to undo at any point because you made a mistake, you can just click undo. If you come in and you see that changes have been made to the protocol that shouldn't be there or that you're not really sure where they came from because someone else on your team was maybe working on the protocol, you can click history here and review the history of the protocol. So we took a full step back just to clear things up. And now if we come over here to components, components are another way to enhance your protocols. So components provide a few different benefits in utilizing them in your protocol. One is that they help with machine readability of protocols. Two is they make protocols runnable for others. So you can create a protocol run, which I'm not going to cover today, just since we're focused more about sharing and creating protocols. And three is that you can add more information to ensure that your protocol is reproducible and reusable. So you'll see the list of components here. If there's specific components that you use a lot, you can add that little star there and add to favorites, and then it will show up in your favorites here. Components like geographical coordinates allow you to put the exact coordinates of an address, and then anyone who's viewing that protocol can see those coordinates. Perhaps you're working with a field site or something that's there for them to view. Components like, let me close favorites, components like reagent are really important, as I mentioned, for protocols to include the exact details of your reagent, catalog number, everything. So if I'm working with MEM, it will take 1 second to load and I'll take a sip of water. You can see we have a lot of different reagents listed here. And I can find the exact reagent that I work with, the name, the company, the catalog, and if my reagent's not present, I can click create a new reagent. Perhaps it's a buffer that I've made myself. In that case, the vendor would be homemade, and there wouldn't be a catalog number or RRID or any of that information, or there could be a different vendor like Thermo Fisher, for example. and you can create that reagent or add an existing reagent. So the benefit of putting the reagents component is that it really allows others to go through and reproduce what you've done exactly. And if they're having issues with the protocol, the first question they might ask is, well, is it because I'm using a different reagent, a different catalog, a different company? Are there differences between the modifications between the companies? Similarly, the equipment component allows you to add specific information about equipment. I think that from all of my examples, you'll quickly be able to figure out that I am a biomedical scientist by background. So, a Zeiss microscope with the exact catalog number and information, you could add that in. Um, the reagent component, equipment component software allows you to put in information about the specific software that you're using. So PyMol software, that doesn't show up. So in that case, I would create new software, really include the version number. That's super important to include, the operating system, everything. And so by adding those components in, you're enhancing your protocol and you're also making it so that others are able to reproduce your work. And there's a lot more components here, so I encourage you to look through them. But you can add those into your protocol as you're uh, creating it, or to a protocol that was imported with our AI import service. It will not have components when it's imported. So let me just show you what that looks like for 1 second. Oh, excuse me, clicked the wrong thing here. If I navigate to one of my other workspaces, this protocol was imported with the AI import service. And you can see there's no components here. And so I can go ahead and click edit and just start adding components in myself. And if I highlight a time, for example, and hit duration, it will add that component for me. All right. The other important thing to note for the protocol as you're creating it, whether you're creating the protocol entirely from scratch, whether you're adding information to one that you used the AI importer from, whether you're forking a protocol, is some of the key information and metadata. In the description tab of the protocol, you can add a protocol image that helps people to view the protocol, contextualize it. Some people put a graphic abstract of the protocol, kind of showing the steps of the protocol. So you can add that there, and then also make sure to include any image attribution. The abstract is also in the description section, so that's where you would add the information to contextualize your protocol. All of the authors who are involved in creating the protocol should be added. Any keywords to help others find the protocol, external link, manuscript citation, and disclaimer if those exist. You'll also want to go to guidelines and warnings, and if you need to apply an ethics statement, add that. Any guidelines, warnings, or instructions for people to follow before they even start the protocol should be seen here. And then if it's confidential, well, it's a private protocol, or if there's sensitive content, you can add those warnings. And then references for any protocols or papers that you used in order to create this can be added. The list of materials can be added. And if you're using that reagent component, your protocol materials will be auto-generated with which step they're in. Acknowledgements is really, really important. So anyone who has contributed to this protocol development, not an author, but has contributed in some way. And then, of course, your funder. So here you want to make sure if this research, if this protocol was done in development with Gates Foundation, that you list the Gates Foundation and your grant ID. This helps us to later go through and see how many protocols there are that are associated with specific funders, with specific grant IDs, and also it ensures that you're giving acknowledgements to your funders. And then the last tab is troubleshooting. If there's known problems and known solutions to those problems, you can add those in here. All right. I'll also mention another way that you can work on your protocol as you're developing it. Perhaps it's a totally new protocol that you're working on, that you're developing. So I'm going to go actually back to my uh, my personal workspace and my IHC protocol. Um, So when I'm working on, if I was working on developing this immunohistochemistry protocol, and it's still in development, but I've been having issues, we provide to you as premium access to AI generated, AI enhanced troubleshooting. So in your troubleshooting tab, and this is true for your own protocol, but also protocols that you're viewing on the site, both private and public, you can type a question or describe an issue that you'd like the AI to troubleshoot. It will keep a record of your discussions. As you can see here, in March, I asked, I'm not getting any signal, and it will provide a cause and potential steps to resolve that issue, and then alternatives. And so, if you're developing a protocol, that might be a helpful way for you to get thinking about how you can troubleshoot the protocol. And then you can take those suggestions and add them to your steps once you've confirmed that that actually helps to troubleshoot the protocol. Or if it's something that you realize, oh, yes, the protocol only works sometimes because of this, but not other times, you can go ahead and type that problem in yourself and then paste in what the solution would be. I will note that the conversation with the troubleshooting AI is only seen by you, so anyone else who views that protocol won't see that. So if it is something that's a really important problem and solution for others to be aware of, you do want to add that into the troubleshooting tab yourself. All right. So that is a quick overview of importing and drafting protocols. You can enhance them with components. It's really important to add additional information beyond just the steps, but also description, guidelines, acknowledgements, troubleshooting, and that will really help you to make a protocol that not only is really good for others to follow, but is really helpful for you and your team to follow. Once you are actually ready to publish your protocol, we have a few options. So I'm just going to keep viewing my immunohistochemistry protocol. If I'm in the file manager, I can, oh, that's the wrong protocol to look at because that's owned by a different Marika McCabe. If I'm in the file manager, I can start the publishing workflow by hitting publish here, or I can reserve DOI, post draft, or if I'm viewing the protocol, which I really encourage you before you go to publish a protocol, view the protocol, go through each tab, go through the steps, troubleshooting guidelines, materials, make sure everything is there, everything is what you want it to be, and looks exactly how it should look. At the top left here, you'll see these options of publish, reserve DOI, post draft, sign. Um, when you go to publish, you'll be taken through the publishing workflow. Make sure to update the title to be a descriptive title for your protocol. Add an abstract. You should add at least 2 to 3 sentences of an abstract. Um, if you have a disclaimer, you can add that in. The author information is required as well as funder information. So this, again, if you didn't add it while you were editing the protocol, is where you'll add the funder acknowledgement. So I would put Gates. I am not a grantee, so I'm going to make up a number and click that, and that will be now added to my protocol. You can get rid of any existing comments if you've been getting that feedback from others. You might want to discard the comments, set whether the protocol is working in development or other. If it's a research protocol, which many of what you do is, many of the protocols you work on are, or non-research. So if you're teaching someone how to assemble equipment or a cooking recipe or some standard operating procedure, that would be non-research. The big difference here is non-research protocols are not indexed by Google Scholar. Research protocols are indexed by Google Scholar. This would be research. And then workspaces. So in this section is where there is a difference between if you're publishing a protocol that you've been working on in your own workspace that is premium through Gates or in the Gates workspace. So in this case, my immunohistochemistry protocol is in my McCabe Lab workspace. It is not in the Gates Foundation workspace. And if I look here, it is being highlighted only in the McCabe Lab workspace. you'll want to find that Gates WES umbrella workspace, and hopefully you have far fewer workspaces than I do to scroll through, and toggle that on so that it appears in that workspace. And then you can click Next. If you're publishing in the Gates Lab workspace, it will automatically be toggled on. I'm not going to show that for the sake of time, but just the way the McCabe Lab was, it will be automatically toggled on. And then you'll have a preview of the protocol, and you'll go through a confirmation to confirm that you actually do want to publish the protocol. At any point, you can cancel and say, oh, I actually don't want to publish, and discard changes, and the protocol will remain private. As soon as you submit it for publication, the protocol will be published. So just be aware of that. The other option of reserving a DOI takes you through that exact same workflow, but it keeps the protocol private with now a DOI that you can use in citations, in manuscripts until you're ready to publish the protocol, but now it has that DOI. And just to show you what that looks like, if I have a private protocol here in yellow, that protocol is just, it's there, it's private, there is information, but there's no DOI. Only people who have access to this can view it. If I reserve my DOI, which is this purple one here, that protocol remains private, so it's still private, but now I have that reserved DOI. And if I hit this little eye icon here, I'll be able to get the DOI and the private link for reviewers, which you will need to share with reviewers or with anyone that you want to see that protocol before it's public. And the protocol citation is fully there and available. And then once the protocol is public, it now has the different languages that it's automatically translated into. It is completely public. The DOI is still there. Anyone can view it with this view link. Anyone can view it with the DOI. And again, you have this full citation for the protocol. I also now can look at my metrics tab and see how many people are viewing my protocol, if it's cited in any manuscripts, which it's not because this one's just about making coffee. If anyone has created a fork of the protocol, so I can see someone made a private fork, they made their own variant privately. And then my own versions appear here as well. Others will not see that. Okay. And now I just want to quickly go over the private sharing one more time, and just mention one thing, which is that when you're in the Gates umbrella workspace and you create your protocol, you, as I said, should create it in this Gates folder so that others can view it. But if you want to create it in your own workspace and share it with the Gates umbrella workspace, the way to do that is to come in, I should switch back, come into your personal workspace, click that protocol, click share, and then add shared access, and you can go ahead and switch that to workspace and add in Gates WS umbrella workspace. Then you can specify the folder that it should be in, and you can change the settings of whether people should be able to view the protocol, edit the protocol, or preview only the protocol. So if I want other Gates grantees to be able to view this protocol, I can go ahead and click share, save. It is now shared in that workspace. And if I toggle to that Gates workspace, you'll see now that protocol has appeared. It shows that it's shared from the McCabe lab, but anyone who's part of this workspace who's not me will not be able to edit it, can only view it. And I can just go ahead quickly and undo that and remove access so that others can't see it. And so now it is no longer in that workspace. The other thing I want to mention is we have put in these getting started guides that kind of walk you through a lot of different features, including how to publish, how to privately share a protocol. And one other note that if you are creating your protocols in the Gates workspace, you might want to just check the access settings of your personal protocols. So in this case, if I click the protocol and I click share, I can see that anyone in the Gates workspace can edit and publish my protocols. You might want to change that to edit only because you don't want others to be able to publish your protocol. You only want them to edit it, you might want to change that to view. So that would mean that any of you can view that protocol, but you can't actually edit the protocol. You can't publish the protocol. Now, if someone did come in and look at that protocol and say, oh, I have some feedback and some edits, they could provide that with comments. So they could go ahead and click this comment button and ask a question or provide a comment, but they're not editing the actual protocol. All right. So I know it is a lot of information. And again, I really encourage you guys to reach out if you have other questions, if you need additional help. So those getting started guides that are in the workspace should provide a lot of information and should be really helpful. But if you have additional questions, we do have a really good help center. We have tutorial videos that are short. It doesn't cover everything, but it covers a lot. And if anything is missing, or if you need additional assistance, you can always give feedback or ask a question. Um, we do have our monthly webinars that cover an intro to Protocols IO, which is kind of too basic for all of you now. A tips and tricks webinar, which is really helpful for a lot of you, probably because it goes into runs and components and other ways to kind of vamp up your protocol. And you can also watch recordings of those on our site, or request a one-on-one demo or email us if you need help. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Here is my email address, and feel free also to email info@protocols.io, which is our group email that anyone on our team will be able to check and respond to you, and goes across different time zones. So you'll receive a priority response from that. And I've put the webinar feedback survey in the chat and now can take any questions. I don't see any that have come in yet, but any questions people have. Also, if you prefer just to raise your hand and ask a question, I can unmute you so that you can ask a question. Give it a minute. Right, I don't see any questions. I'm going to stop recording.